In this video, I'm going to be explaining 3 ways how to power up your hook. Hello everybody, welcome to Boxing Science. In this video, I'm going to be sharing 3 training methods that you can do to help power up your hook. Now the hook is a useful tool in boxing. It takes a lot of technical capabilities. But in this video, I'm going to be talking about strength and conditioning exercises that you can do that can help contribute towards improving your hook power. So the first one is the most generic, but also creates the strongest foundation for you to help improve your hook power. And that is to increase rotational strength and stability. When you're throwing a hook, it requires a lot of torso rotation. So you're needing to make sure that the strength and stability of the lateral stabilizers are really switched on for you to be able to control this first initial movement of the hook, to be able to control it and then reproduce a lot of rotational power from. There's a saying that you can't shoot a cannonball out of a canoe. Basically, you're wanting to create as much stability as you can to then generate force and power. So if I think about a hook, if I go over a right hand to the left hook, and if I over rotate on that right hand, I'm then not able to then reproduce as much power into that lead hook. Likewise with the right hook, if I'm not able to rotate effectively and leaving my arm behind, I'm then not going to be able to generate as much power. So when we're looking to improve rotational strength, we first look at stability. So being able to control that rotation through an isometric action. Popular exercises that we use at Boxing Science is the isometric pull-off press, whether it's up against the wall, using a partner, or going against a cable. You can get a crane scale to get some feedback on that, or we use the valve dynamo to make sure that we're getting athletes to produce as much force and intent to really power up that rotational strength and stability. We've also got like banded variations of this before we move on to rotational strength, which is challenging that stability through a range of motion. And the best ones for this are cable rotations and a range of different variations of this. So the next section is improving kinetic chain sequencing, in particular rotational power. So what we want to do is a range of different drills that look more like a hook in action. So we look to try and develop rotational power. We look to create like stability under high forces and high speeds, but then also try and sync our body together to produce a forceful action that is looking just like a hook. So we'll start off with like kind of rotational power work that is challenging that stability at the same time. Split stance, catch and throw. We're challenging that ability to control that force, push through that lead leg, not looking to over rotate here, then to reproduce that force into a rotational action. So we do that from kneeling as well. So kneeling rotational throw. So this is again, quite generic, doesn't quite look like a hook in action yet, but it's developing that rotational power, but also the stability that you need. Like I said, if you throw a right hand and then a lead hook, you're not wanting to over rotate, improving the ability to stop that rotation through rotational strength and stability, but we also need to learn how to do that boom, boom, under speed. So we do that in a generic format, and then we move on to our like hook specific exercises, such as med ball catch and throw. So we'll throw the med ball to the athlete and then they control that force and then reproduce it. Instead of keeping that front leg stable, they're now rotating that leg, rotating that hip in, really challenging that ability to move their hips and their torso all at the same time and in sync, which will then transfer into that hooking action. A few different levels to this. We're improving kinetic chain sequencing. We're challenging that stability under speed, that rotational power, and then we're wanting to put it all together into a forceful and powerful action that looks more like the hook. So the third and final one, but it's not the least important, they're all as equally as important as each other, is improving shoulder function, in particular external rotation of the shoulder. Now the reason why is because when we're throwing a hook, we're wanting to get our arm in sync with the body, and we're also wanting to get our elbows elevated into position to land headshots. For body shots, it's a little bit lower, but for headshots, we're almost like taught to get our arm more or less parallel with the floor. With this, it requires obviously shoulder abduction but also is requiring that kind of internal rotation there. Now, because boxers are quite tight in their shoulders, what will happen is that internal rotation will happen a little bit earlier. And with this, ends up the elbow being left behind. There's a little bit of disconnect with the body. Basically, you're putting a lot of tension through that shoulder there, so that might result in acute or even chronic injuries. But also, you're not going to get as much power because you're wanting to generate as much momentum and much mass behind the shot as you can. All your mass is following with the body. So if your arm is just a little bit behind, it's not going to generate as much force. So you're wanting to have your body working as one. If your shoulder's a bit tight, that's what will happen. Also, like I said, the technical term is to try and get that forearm parallel with the floor. If you're tight in this shoulder area, this internal rotation and humeral head, we're not quite getting that range, the elbow will drop. So that'll affect your technique of landing that left hook. With that in mind, you want to be working on that shoulder range. Instead of working on that kind of anterior, more working posterior, working on kind of external rotational range, because if you are kind of limited in here, that'll mean probably that you're limited in that external rotation range. So improving that external rotation range there and external rotational strength, but also just strengthening this position is quite good for not only for a performance perspective, but also from an injury health perspective. So a lot of the work that we do at Boxing Science around the shoulder is doing holds here with the dumbbell, pushing the elbow into the wall and holding a dumbbell for like, let's say for 10 seconds, as long as you can, holding this position. You can see that can really transfer into being stronger in that hooking action. There's a few different variations that you can do. You can do drop catches, you can do external rotations into the wall as well. There's a range of different things that you can do around the shoulder that can help transfer into powering up your hook. Okay guys, so that's the end of this video. If you're not subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button. About 38% of watch this channel are actually subscribing. So that means that 62% aren't subscribing. So to help grow the channel, if you can hit that subscribe button, that'll really help us to be delivering more content just like this. So thank you very much for watching. Hopefully see you on the next video at Boxing Science.